Welcome to the iPad Podcast, a weekly podcast from Mac's Future.
Okay, welcome to episode 87 of the iPad Podcast. This is Lex at Mac'sFuture.com. Today is January 30th, and we have a lot of iPad news to talk about. And let's get to it. Remember, you can help out this podcast by giving it any sort of positive review in iTunes or on YouTube or on Blip TV. So let's get to it. So last week, Apple had, a tremendous quarter result. This is for the quarter ending December 31st, 2011. I mean, Apple just completely hit it out of the park. It had $46.33 billion in revenue and profits of $13 billion and 0.06. Just incredible numbers. And it also announced iPad sales, and iPad sales were tremendous in the quarter. A total of 15.43 million iPads sold in one quarter, which is, according to Apple, a 111% unit increase over the same quarter a year before. Now, the difference was the iPad 2 came out after that quarter a year ago. But still, these are amazing. And altogether since April 2010, when it first came out, Apple has sold 50, it came out in 2010. Apple has sold 55 million iPads, which is pretty incredible. So in almost a 2-year period, Apple sold, almost half of 100 million iPads. So these are huge numbers, and I think we're going to continue to see incredible growth in the iPad, particularly with the iPad 3 probably coming out this March or April. So kudos to Apple. Now, soon after Apple announced that, incredible financial news, the New York Times started running a couple of articles linking Apple's success with the iPad to labor abuse in China. And the headline was that the New York Times ran, "In China, human costs are built into an iPad." And, I thought that the post or the article was kind of unfair because basically it said, look, Apple uses these suppliers in China like Foxconn that have very poor labor conditions, compared to American labor conditions. And buried in the article conceded that, other manufacturers like Dell, HP, I guess even Samsung have the similar type suppliers in China that have poor labor conditions. The article sort of touted how Chinese workers at Foxconn work very long hours, they live in dormitories, they're not paid very much. And, what I thought was kind of sensationalist about the article was that it really just focused on Apple, sort of taking a pot shot at Apple because it has these huge profits. But the article fails to point out, this has been an issue for decades because we've gone to a global economy, and for the last two decades, whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president, we are allowing open borders and open trade. And that open trade is causing manufacturers to use a lot of factories in China for a number of reasons, because, the regulations are more lax in China and because the labor is much cheaper. So why are you picking on one company? I mean, does a company has an obligation to its shareholders to maximize profits? And if every manufacturer in the United States is outsourcing overseas, whether it's to Mexico, to China, to the Philippines, to Brazil, why focus on just one company? And, they did it to be sensationalist because, Apple is now one of the most successful public companies in the United States or in the world. But these issues are really not just Apple's, they're all manufacturers. And, I think I pointed out something I wrote that, look, I think our light bulbs are made in China. a lot of the low prices we have with television sets, whether they're LCD or plasma, are because they're manufactured in Asia, where the labor costs are lower. So, I thought the piece was unfair and that it was looking for headlines. Now, if we're really going to do something about this, then we have to create a level playing field, and we have to basically tell foreign countries that they have to have the same labor rights and labor costs as in the United States. But is that really practical? Most of China is incredibly, incredibly poor. So when we criticize the labor at Foxconn, yes, by American standards, it's very, poor quality working conditions, but by the caliber of the life that the people have in the poor villages in rural China, it's a huge step up for them in terms of, what they're earning and their opportunity. So how do we impose on foreign countries the obligation to pay, let's say, the same labor rate as in the United States and the same working conditions? Okay, let's say we have the same working conditions, in other words, the same safety and all of that. Well, that's one component, but what about salary? Should Chinese companies like Foxconn pay its workers an hourly rate the same as, what is paid in Detroit or in other American cities? And the Chinese government would argue that that's not right. The average salary in China is much, much, much lower. So it would be a windfall to those workers to receive a higher salary that was more like American salaries. And if it's a lower salary, businesses are still going to go to China for the manufacturing simply because the hourly rates are lower. So this is a real conundrum. It's not just one company. It's really the entire American economy is based on foreign manufacturing and cheap labor overseas. So it's really not something that should be targeted against one company. That seemed kind of unfair. Now, Apple's Tim Cook was pretty, I think, upset about the New York Times article, basically linking the iPad to poor labor conditions at factories that supply Apple. And TheVerge.com's website got a hold of an internal email that Tim Cook circulated at Apple where he expressed his outrage. And this is what he said. I guess the article was actually first leaked to 9to5Mac. He said, as a company and as individuals, we are defined by our values. Unfortunately, some people are questioning Apple's values today, and I'd like to address this with you directly. We care about every worker in our worldwide supply chain. Any accident is deeply troubling, and any issue with working conditions is cause for concern. Any suggestion that we don't care is patently false and offensive to us. As you know better than anyone, accusations like these are contrary to our values. It's not who we are. For the many hundreds of you who are based at our suppliers' manufacturing sites around the world or spend long stretches working there away from your families, I know you are as outraged by this as I am. For the people who aren't as close to the supply chain, you have a right to know the facts. So at Apple, they're pretty upset about this New York Times piece, and frankly, I think it's a little bit of a hit piece by the New York Times. They should have put it in the context of what the entire American economy is doing in China. So, I don't know. I don't think the way you cure, and also the New York Times sort of suggests that people should be more careful about what they buy, but this isn't like buying, ivory made from elephant tusks. It's very hard to know what labor went into what component when you're buying it. And I think it's hard to ask consumers to know exactly what kind of labor went into this or that device when they buy it. The way that this should really be addressed is at the government level. If this is an issue, the government should basically say, no, we're not going to let you import certain goods in the United States if it doesn't meet minimum labor requirements. But that battle's been going on for 20 years. For 20 years, American labor has been basically telling the federal government that, hey, it's not a level playing field, that, foreign countries and foreign labor aren't subject to the same minimum labor standards in the United States. So really, it should be at that governmental level that the issue is implemented or discussed. Of course, speaking of manufacturing Apple products and the iPad abroad, it looks like there'll be a new place that it's manufactured in the iPad, and that is in Brazil. MacRumors.com had a story out on January 12th that said that the Brazilian newspaper called Folha reported that the Brazilian government has officially approved tax incentives that will allow Foxconn, that's that same company that's accused of poor labor practices in China, to begin producing iPads in Brazil. And basically this new ordinance was signed on Monday and provides for a reduction or an exemption from certain taxes that are associated with the production of touchscreen tablets lacking a keyboard and weighing less than 750 grams. So it sounds like they're giving a tax break to Foxconn to manufacture the iPad in Brazil, and apparently they need that tax break because without the tax break, there are these like duties imposed on the iPad that would make it very expensive. The article, for example, points out that the high import taxes on foreign-made goods have prevented Apple from making significant inroads in Brazil, and that the iPad currently has a starting price of $925 for the 16-gigabyte Wi-Fi iPad 2. Now, in the United States, the 16-gigabyte Wi-Fi iPad 2 goes for a mere $499. So with all the duties and taxes in Brazil, it costs a whopping $925. So, the point, though, is here's another example of how, there are financial inducements to manufacture overseas. For example, if Apple doesn't manufacture in Brazil, it might not be able to, sell iPads at a competitive price in Brazil because of these duties and protectionist policies by the Brazilian government. So you just can't blame everything on a company. You have to also look at the countries and the governments that impose all sorts of restrictions and have different labor practices. Now in Apple's comments in its conference call after the quarterly announcement, Tim Cook was asked at some point about what kind of competition Apple saw from the Kindle Fire, which was released, a month before Christmas in the last quarter. And basically Tim Cook pointed out that, they haven't really seen any sort of evidence that the Kindle Fire, which is smaller and cheaper than the iPad, has really, dented any of the iPad's momentum. And in fact, Apple sold 15 million iPads in the quarter. But one thing that the Kindle Fire did do is it seems to be quickly ramping up to be the most important device in the Android tablet market. Ars Technica has a story entitled Kindle Fire Dwarfs Other Android Tablets in Market Share After 3 Months. And based on, application activation data, one analytics company, called Flurry Analytics, was able to see that the Kindle went from having a 3% market share in November 2011 to a 36% market share. That's a market share of all Android tablet devices. So I wonder if Google's freaked out by this because Amazon is sort of keeping the Kindle as a closed Android platform based on a sort of a fork of the Android operating system that Amazon has built on that free open source operating system. They may end up being the main player in the Android tablet market. Okay, so I previously discussed how the Apple released this free app called iBooks Author that helps you create multimedia ebooks that are, incredibly interesting for the iPad. And I got some emails from some people basically very concerned that I said that people shouldn't really worry about this controversy that was created by a guy named Ed Bott on ZDNet, where he said that Apple's license agreement for eBooks Author was evil. Now, what Ed Bott was saying is that in the terms of, or the licensing agreement that Apple released, if you created a multimedia book with iBooks Author, some people were interpreting it to mean that you couldn't sell your book under any circumstances in anything other than iBooks. And, I took a look at the licensing agreement, and the key phrase is this. It basically says up front, if you charge a fee for any book or other works you generate using this software, and it defines that then as a work in capital letters, you may only sell or distribute such work through Apple, and such distribution will be subject to a separate agreement with Apple. But the key term is generate. And what Apple is saying is if you use the application to generate the book with the multimedia stuff, then that format of the book can only be sold through Apple. But Apple doesn't say in here that it's limiting. Let's say you created the text in Microsoft Word or in Pages, and then you cut and pasted the text into iBooks Author. Apple isn't saying that text now is owned by Apple. Apple's just saying if you want to use this format that iBooks creates, then you have to use the iBookstore to sell it. And I think that's kind of a fair point that they make. Now, here's why I think it's fair that Apple restricts selling a book created by iBooks Author only through the iBookstore. Apple's trying to compete with Amazon, which already has a really dominant share of the ebook market. And so Apple's trying to create a utility that makes ebooks much more interesting in the iPad. And if you look to iBooks Author, it has incredible features, for example, that don't come with a typical ebook. You can, and I'm looking here on a screenshot, you can create, you can add great images to create a cover sheet to the book. You can have intro media. If you look here in iBooks Author, you can drop a movie or image here in this space. It generates an automatic table of contents, which is interesting. And you can just put groovy pictures and all sorts of stuff and, make a really very complicated ebook with multimedia. Now look up here, you can add widgets. You can add a photo gallery in there. You can put in other video media. You can put in a review so people can review, let's say if it was a textbook, a multimedia textbook. You can have a review with questions and answers. You can even drop keynotes in there, and the slideshow will run in the ebook. You can also add in interactive images. And also if you use a certain open source 3D creating tool, you can put in all sorts of interesting 3D animation in there. And finally, you can cut and paste HTML into iBooks Author. So the point is that Apple's creating a very complicated, powerful tool that's easy to use to create ebooks. Now, there could be a couple of reasons. One, it wants to, make this more compelling so people buy the iPad and read it on the iPad, so that more books are put on the iPad. And also another reason could be Apple wants to make sure that the quality of this particular format of iBooks Author format works, and so they know it works on the iPad too, and they don't want other parties to take it and try to have it work on other hardware where it might not work as well. So, I know some people are concerned. Some people are concerned that this limits their ability to sell their book on other platforms. But my reading of the terms of service are that you just can't take the file that's generated by iBooks Author and sell it on another platform. You could take the text that you created independently of iBooks Author and paste it into some other utility that creates an ebook that could then be sold on the Kindle or the Barnes & Noble, the Nook. So I don't think it's limiting in that way. Anyways, I think other people would agree with me on the internet on that. I think it's an accusation against Apple that I don't think it's true. I don't think they're trying to basically say if you put your text in this thing, it automatically becomes Apple's. Now, it looks like some people are already using iBooks Author to create stuff. MacRumors has a story out on January 23rd entitled Comic Writer Tries Out iBooks Author. And it basically says that Richard Stevens, who's the author of Diesel Sweeties webcomic, has basically written an iBooks author book. And he writes, I had a few insomniac hours this weekend and did a little experiment. Waking up with the Diesel Sweeties is a tiny little free ebook for the iPad. It contains all my comics from last month with a few tweaks, formatted in iBooks Author. This version only works on the iPad. It's not in the iBook store, so you need to download the file and sync it to your iPad. So he basically offered it for free. And in the link that I have to MacRumors, there is a link that you can use on mobile Safari on your iPad to download it. And it goes on to say that the author, Diesel Sweeties, says he's considering how to combine his 12 years of comics into one huge collection, and he's interested in iBooks Author as a potential production device for his ongoing comics collection. So anyways, there is a direct link on MacRumors.com, and I have a link to that MacRumors site. So hopefully we'll be seeing more authors using iBooks Author. So check it out. Okay, so there's a little bit of irony in this story, and this is on electronista.com on January 29th, and apparently the Wisconsin school district, I guess, got into a lawsuit with Microsoft or in a dispute, and as part of the settlement of the dispute, the school district will get a total of 1,400 iPads this year, all of them paid for by Microsoft. So electronista.com was reporting of a story in the Wisconsin State Journal. It says the state will use a portion of the nearly $80 million it will receive from Microsoft to buy 600 iPads this spring and 800 more in the fall. And apparently there was a decade-long lawsuit by Wisconsin and 8 other states alleging that Microsoft routinely overcharged for software. And it was a class action that was part of a 1998 Department of Justice lawsuit against Microsoft for abuse of monopoly power. And it says that Wisconsin got a total of $224 million as part of the settlement. And so they're using some of the money, ironically, to buy iPads. I'm sure that doesn't thrill Microsoft that it's using some of the money to buy non-Microsoft products. It says only about $700,000 of the $3.4 million that is Madison's share of the settlement money will be spent on iPads. So then, they're not blowing all the money on iPads. They're also using it for other technology. And I guess they get a discount because they're a school, and so each iPad will cost $479. It says one school is planning to buy 105 iPads in a pilot program that will allocate one for each student in 4 classrooms, while other schools are buying just a few, primarily to help teachers with planning and record keeping. So, it's ironic, but listen, I think the iPad is going to be making really serious inroads in the school environment, particularly with the advent of these cheap textbooks. That was part of the release of iBooks Author and iTunes University app. But also, it's just a very practical device in the classroom, much better than all this other technology that a lot of schools have, like smart boards and stuff like that. Now, I've been saying for some time now that Microsoft is going to be releasing more and more apps on the iPhone and the iPad simply because the iPhone and iPad are doing so well. And although Microsoft is developing its own software for tablets, it's going to hedge its bets. And we've seen previously Microsoft apps being released in the App Store for both the iPad and the iPhone. And the website TheVerge.com on January 24th, in an article by Tom Warren, says that Microsoft releases a Pulse-like MSN UK iPad application. So apparently there is a Microsoft MSN app for the United Kingdom released on the iPad, and it says that the app provides access to MSN UK articles, including an option to download current issues for viewing offline. It says Microsoft also has built-in support for photo galleries and various MSN videos that can be streamed to AirPlay-compatible devices. So I think we're just going to see more and more of this happen. Okay, so MacWorld just ended and occurred out, I guess, in San Francisco. That's the big annual Macintosh Expo, or the Apple Expo. Apple no longer goes to it, but it does draw a lot of third-party companies that offer devices and software and such. And a lot of the Apple coverage people went there, including MacWorld. And MacWorld's website has an interesting device that they spotted that caught my eye. It's something called iFlashDrive USB drive, and according to the MacWorld article, it's basically a USB drive that works both with Macintoshes and iOS devices. So if you look at a picture of this thing, it has, I guess, storage, and it has on one side a regular dock connector that connects to iOS devices, and on the other side a USB connector. And it says here it comes in an 8 gigabyte version for $100, and a 16 gigabyte version for $150, and a 32 gigabyte version for $200. And it says here that when you connect it, well, you can connect it to a Mac or a PC, and it acts like any thumb drive. But when you connect it directly to an iOS device like an iPad, you can use I guess a free app that you can download called iFlashDrive to see all the music, videos, and other files and interact with them directly from the drive itself. Now, we've seen this with hard drives that connect to the iPad, and it says here the app allows you to download files from the drive directly to your iPad or iPhone. However, you can't copy files directly from your iPad or iPhone directly to the device itself. And it also says you can also sync files that are on this flash drive while connected to your iPad to Dropbox. So, it's got interesting features. And I don't know, if you're looking for additional storage, the largest size is 32 gigabytes. Would be nicer if it came in larger sizes, and it is kind of pricey at $200 for 32 gigabytes. So I don't know if it's really worth it. Personally, I'm not going to pay $200 for 32 gigabytes because a regular flash drive, which doesn't necessarily work with the iPad, I think 32 gigabytes is like, I don't know, 20, 30, or $40. So this is very pricey, but if you desperately need to have this additional storage when you're connected to your iPad, then I guess it's worth getting. So check it out. Now, the Cult of Mac website, which is another website I read a lot of, was highlighting another device that works with the iPad that was at MacWorld, and it's something called iKeyboard. And iKeyboard appears to be this see-through keyboard that you lay over the iPad, and you then can touch type because it's got a texture and feel to it. And who's the writer at Cult of Mac? Anyways, he really liked it. I guess it was originally a Kickstarter device, and he basically says, you can easily clamp it on over the screen of the iPad, and then because it has sort of cutouts over the letters, you can actually feel the letters without looking down. So, it might really help you type directly on the screen, but frankly, if I'm going to bring any sort of device to put on or connect to my iPad, I'd rather just get the standard Bluetooth keyboard from Apple and just carry it around, rather than put something over the screen, because when you put something over the screen, you sort of cover the screen a bit. But this reviewer liked it. It goes for $35 on Amazon, and I don't know, you can sort of slide it up over the iPad when you're not using it. And I'm not inclined to buy it, but if you really want to type on the screen of the iPad, this would allow you to sort of touch type by feeling the notes or the keys. Again, I think the drawback to this thing is it covers up some of the screen. On the other hand, if you're using the virtual screen, that's sort of covering up some of the screen also. So, I don't know. I'm ambivalent regarding whether this is a great solution or not. Okay, so let's go to apps. You know that the iPad and the iPhone App Store is getting saturated when diapers now appear in the iPad App Store. What am I talking about? Well, Pampers, the maker of a lot of diapers, has a free app called Hello Baby. It's called Pampers Hello Baby Pregnancy Calendar. And here's the description. It says experience a baby's development from week 4 to week 40 of pregnancy with Pampers Hello Baby Pregnancy Calendar. So the makers of diapers have a special calendar for your, to count your weeks of pregnancy. It's a great way to sort of catch your clients before they hatch, in the sense that, make a calendar for pregnant women so that when the babies come out, you remember Pampers. So this is a new form of advertisement using apps. So basically it says the beautiful life-size imagery allows you to see the details of growth in the womb, from little ears to tiny toes, learn about each stage of development, and anticipate the joy of your own baby's arrival. And so there's a week-by-week tracking of the baby's development. There's baby imagery, and there's 360-degree view of a typical baby at the different stages of pregnancy. Here's another free app that's timely. The Oscars are coming up, the big awards show for the movies. And there's a free Oscars app by something called ABC Digital. I guess it's related to ABC Television, I'm not sure. And, it's got stuff to help you with the Oscars. It says here, among other things, you can play a game called My Picks that allows you to predict who you think will win and share your predictions with friends. And it has, complete coverage for the Oscars, which are on February 26th. And it has a lot of content about, the movies that were nominated, the actors, the directors, the supporting, crew. And I guess the app has cameras, so you can watch the Oscars on the app live. So again, this is free. It's called Oscars by ABC Digital. And if you're into, different ways to watch the Academy Awards, you should check this out. It's free. I have a link to it on the post for this podcast. Okay, another app that came out for the iPad that I may get myself is a functional app. It's an app that helps you blog, and it's called DraftCraft, and I guess it costs $1.99, and it's a program that allows you to blog to WordPress, to Blogger, to Tumblr, to LiveJournal, and it looks pretty elegant in its design. So if you're into blogging, particularly, I blog a lot on Tumblr, It has a nice interface from the screenshots. It's $1.99 right now. It says here you can now post to all your blogs from one place. And what else? So that's, I think, one of the big features is that it's not just a dedicated blogging app for Tumblr or for Blogger. You can do it to multiple ones. It's HTML free, so you don't have to worry about code. You don't have to write any HTML code. And it's got an enhanced star system, which says this feature lets you manage your progress on a variety of posts, including encouraging you to get your best ideas from quickly and without worrying about writing style. So let's see, the reviews, well, there was like one review that gave it 2 stars, but it's only $1.99. So if you're blogging a lot, I think it might be worth the investment. I may get this. I've been using Tumblr's application for blogging, but that's not designed for the iPad. That's just an iPhone app that works on the iPad. So anyways, you might want to check it out. It's called DraftCraft. Now, another big event that's coming out soon is the Super Bowl this coming weekend, and it looks like there's an official app out for $2.99. It's called Super Bowl. What is it? It's Super Bowl 46. And it says, get the official Super Bowl 46 commemorative app presented by NFL Magazine at a pregame discount of over 50%. The app includes each team's road to the Super Bowl, a breakdown of the game, written recaps and key statistics, and bonus feature content like old-time All-Star teams and Super Bowl histories. When the game is over, celebrate Super Bowl 46 with official video highlights of the game, as well as interviews, pictures, animated play. It works with NFL.com video, and it has each team's road to the Super Bowl. And so it's a pretty basic app. I mean, the real key comes down to how much content is in here. Look, it's $3. So compared to what it costs to go to the Super Bowl, it's not much. And if you're if you're a huge football fan, it might be worth spending the $3. So while you're watching the game, you can sort of scroll these statistics about each team. So, it's $3. It's called Super Bowl 46 commemorative app. I think I'm reading those Roman numerals correctly. Now, there were a couple of conferences recently that affected the iPad. One was the NAMM conference, which is the National Association of Music Dealers or something, manufacturers. And the other one was MacWorld out in San Francisco, the Apple-centric conference that Apple used to go to, but now is sort of dominated by third-party hardware and software developers. And let's talk about the NAMM. Now, TheVerge.com had an interesting spot at the NAMM show, and that is the music mixer company Mackie, M-A-C-K-I-E, which is famous in the music world, announced a hardware mixer called the DL1608 mixer, and it goes for a cool $999. But the key is that the mixer is controlled by the iPad. So I think we're going to see more and more of this, where the iPad becomes a sort of a control for a more expensive hardware, thing. And it says here that the iPad-controlled mixers were a big part of the NAMM show this year, and Mackie put together one of the most innovative solutions. And it says once everything's hooked up to this mixer, users can adjust the mix through the iPad while wandering the room, letting engineers easily tweak the sound from places besides the soundboard. The mixer even supports up to 10 iPads simultaneously. So, in other words, other iPads can connect to it. And so I guess you can have this board and then put people around the room where they hear the sound and then control the mixer from other parts. It says other benefits the iPad brings to the table include the ability to record the live mix directly to the iPad storage and the ability to mix in pre-recorded audio stored on the iPad to the mix. So that's kind of cool. And it says the 16-channel mixer should be available by this summer, costing $1,000. So, I think we're seeing a lot of innovation, particularly in music, in using the iPad either to create cool music-related apps on the iPad or to integrate the iPad with music hardware. So, I think this is going to be an interesting year where we're going to see more and more manufacturers using the iPad in creative ways with other hardware. Now, PC World spotted some other cool hardware at the Consumer Electronics Show, which also took place very recently, and they came across something that allows you to wirelessly charge your iPad too. It's something called LaunchPort, and this is on PC World. And they say basically it's inductive charging technology. And it says the LaunchPort system works by encasing an iPad 2 in a sleeve called Power Shuttle that either mounts to a tabletop base station or a wall station. The PC Magazine article says the system uses induction, the production of an electric current across a conductor moving through a magnetic field, which means as soon as the power shuttle is magnetically mounted to a station, wireless charging begins without a 30-pin cable connection. So this is pretty cool. It's going to cost, though, $350 apparently to get this system. And you can get an iPad 2 frame for $130. So this is like very, very expensive. I think the average person is not going to get something like this. It's easy to sort of charge your iPad just by docking it. But I do think in the future, Apple could take this technology, if it's efficient and not too expensive, and just incorporate it into the iPad as a feature, and that's the sort of inductive charging. Now, if you want the iPad to really control hardware, one of the cooler things that it can control is something called the Crestron system. And Cult of Mac, which went to MacWorld, on its website, it showed how the iPad is used with this system to control boardrooms and other devices. And basically, I guess what the article is saying, that Apple uses the Crestron electronic system, and Crestron was there. And what Crestron does, it's an electronic system that can turn on projectors, lower the screen, load slides, provide video conferencing, and adjust lights, windows, and shades. So you can electronically wire and control like some conference room or a boardroom. And at MacWorld, Crestron showed how the iPad can be the controller for this system. So you could, I guess, wire your house and have it controlled by an iPad. And they have a Crestron app that sells for $99. And it can control lights, and it can also control the Apple TV, climates, security of your home and your office. So I guess these systems are expensive. It says here they run from $3,000 to $30,000. And then, of course you're going to get an iPad, compared to that price, to be the controller. So again, here's an example of how the iPad is the controller for other hardware. So Cult of Mac also had another story about something interesting at MacWorld, something known as a waterproof iPad bag. The article was entitled, "This Waterproof iPad Bag is Badass Enough for Navy SEALs." So apparently there's a special bag that is made by a company, and the tote bag is called Grid Tablet. And the company is called Watershed, and it's based out of North Carolina. And this bag costs $97, and it's like a very hardcore waterproof bag. It can withstand depths of 300 feet. And it says here that the Navy SEALs use a camouflage version of the grid tablet, and they're asking the Watershed to design a special security strap system for the iPad. So wow, do you think the Navy SEALs are taking iPads deep underwater when they're doing their, super secret and dangerous assignments? Maybe, but this could be handy. What if you're a diver and want to use the iPad deep underwater? So it looks like you can use the device underwater through the bag. So, if you're in the water a lot and need to protect your iPad, you might want to check out this company called Watershed. And it makes something called the iPad tote bag. It's called the Grid Tablet. Anyways, check it out. I have a link on the show notes. One thing I want to remind everybody is if you have an iPad, there is something called FaceTime. I think you have to download the app on the iPad, but FaceTime allows you to do video conferencing to anybody else who has FaceTime, and you can have FaceTime on a Mac, on an iPhone, on an iPod Touch, and it's free video conferencing through the iPad. And I used it today. Someone in my extended family had a birthday, and we used the iPad to do the FaceTime connection and call. And there's something much more immediate by having like live video streaming back and forth. And yes, you could do it with a computer, but with an iPad, you can walk around with the iPad. You can show other people in the family. It's not static like with a regular keyboard. And plus, with FaceTime, you have the ability to quickly switch from the front video camera of the iPad as well as the iPhone to the back. So you can talk to the person and then say, hey, let me show you the kids playing or so-and-so waving and wishing you a happy birthday. So it's a free tool, and it comes with, you can download it on the iPad. It comes built into the iPhone. You won't see the app on the iPhone. That's one big difference between the iPad and the iPhone. In the iPad, it's an app. On the iPhone, it's just built into the phone function. Now, one downside to it is it only works over Wi-Fi. It currently doesn't work over 3G. You can get it to work over 3G if you jailbreak your iPad or iPhone and install 3G inhibitor in the Cydia store, which is a jailbreak store. But otherwise, you have to be on a Wi-Fi network. But again, this is a feature I think a lot of people overlook, but is highly useful. Now, one of the interesting late-breaking news on today, January 30th, concerns the data plans, and Verizon and AT&T. And MacRumors.com has an interesting story that there's information out here that Verizon and other carriers are going to soon maybe roll out shared data plans where you'll be able to, if you're a family member, to have, X amount of data and then allow it to share it with other devices. And supposedly Verizon is working on it. Now, MacRumors is reporting on something Engadget reported, and Engadget said, we've been told that training material for an update to the outfit's internal account management applications includes screenshots, one of which you can see above, that show a new section labeled account level data plans. The new section apparently shows an account level charge for data allowance and a $9.99 charge per line. So maybe that instead of, paying an additional data plan, if you're on a family plan, that you just pay $9.99. Now, I doubt they're going to allow that with unlimited data plans. Like right now on AT&T, I have a $30 a month unlimited data plan, and my wife has one, but she doesn't use a lot of data, and I would like her to go to $10 a line, but I'd probably lose the unlimited data plan. So, But it would be good for the iPad. I mean, right now, I think you have to pay an extra $25 or $20 on top of a limited data plan on AT&T to tether and share with the iPad. But wouldn't it be better if you didn't tether? Instead, the iPad through 3G shared the data plan with the iPhone. So I think we're going to that, and hopefully that'll come out soon. Now, one thing we should note and celebrate, and it's something that CNET noted, which is that on January 27th, which just passed 3 days ago, it was the 2-year anniversary of the launch of the iPad, because it was 2 years ago on January 27th, 2012. CNET has a story on that by Josh Lowenson, that Steve Jobs took the stage and unveiled the iPad for the first time. And I remember it was a very exciting time for the months leading up to then. People were waiting for some sort of tablet device. There were rumors. Now, it didn't start selling until March, and I think I got mine delivered on April 3rd, 2010. But it's a milestone. Look how far we've gone in 2 years. Apple has sold 55 million of these devices. And remember back then, a lot of people were skeptical. It was getting criticism. CNET points out that one critic said the following, I guess it was David Pogue at the New York Times. He says, like the iPhone, the iPad is really a vessel, a tool, a 1.5 pound sack of potential. It may become many things. It may change an industry or two. It may not. It may introduce a new category, something between phone and laptop, or it may not. And anybody who claims to know what will happen will wind up looking like a fool. Let's see. So a lot of people didn't know what was going to happen. And, one person was kind of a downer. It says here that Dan Frommer of Business Insider said the following. He said, quote, "But in the end, Jobs introduced something that is probably going to sell in the range of a few million units this year, much closer to one of the many of the company's Macs than its runaway hits like the iPod and iPhone. Not the company's next huge growth story, not now anyway. Apple fans hoping for the next revolution or investors hoping for the company's next iPhone should be disappointed." Well, I hate to say it, but Dan Frommer didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Apple ended up, I think, selling 15 million iPads in the first year. And look, it's not even 2 years, and Apple has sold 55 million iPads. It's a crazy runaway success. I mean, the iPad is fueling a lot of the Apple's growth on top of the iPhone. And, it's just a stunning runaway hit. So, 2 years ago, it was first launched, and look where we are. Look at how many devices we've talked about on this program, how many apps, how many functions you could do with it. It's just tremendous. It's, it's a runaway hit. To give you a sense of what a hit it is, there's a great story on gigaohm.com. It's entitled, "iPad Propels Apple to Top of PC Market as Growth Stalls Without Tables." And the article by Daryl Etherington says, "Apple is king of the PC heap as long as you consider the iPad among those devices." And it basically cites research by something called Canalys. And when it looked at the most recent quarter, and it looked at client PC sales, and it shows that the PC market is growing, but mostly as a result of strong iPad sales, if you count iPads in the PC market. So it says here, with Apple's more than 15 million iPads shipped during the quarter, the worldwide PC market grew 16% year over year. Not counting tablets, of which the iPad is easily the most successful, the PC market actually shrank by 0.4% worldwide when compared to the same period a year ago. So, the iPad is what's fueling the growth of computers at this point. It says here Apple's success both with the iPad and its Mac computers allowed it to take top honors for the quarter, knocking out Hewlett-Packard to second place overall. So the state of the iPad is incredibly successful at this point. Because, imagine in their first year, I think they sold 15 million iPads, and in one quarter, which is a quarter of a year, Apple just sold 15 million iPads. And, what's your guess as to how many iPads Apple will sell in this calendar year? My guess is Apple could sell, particularly with the iPad 3 coming out, I'm going to guess Apple's going to sell 70 million iPads in calendar year 2012. That's how many. That's my guess right here on the iPad podcast. Okay, so that's it for episode 87 of the iPad podcast. This is Lex at Mac's Future. Thanks for listening. Remember, this is a chit-chat free podcast and commercial free, and at least on the audio portion. And if you want to help it out, any positive review in the iTunes store would be greatly appreciated, or a positive review on YouTube or Blip TV. Thanks for listening, and you can also follow me under Mac's Future on Google+, Mac's Future on Twitter. You can also check out the macsfuture.com website and blog, and I think Mac's Future is on other places also. So again, thanks for listening, and see you next week.
This has been a Mac's Future production.